So jealousy can be a clue. Like, I'm jealous that somebody else has a much easier time making time for creativity, making time to write, taking art classes and showing up consistently for them. I'm jealous of people who can do that. That might not necessarily be a permission problem. That you might totally believe that you deserve to be creative and to take the art class and to make the paintings and to take up the time that you need. But what we're jealous of is the ease with which a neurotypical person, or even a more supported and accommodated neurodivergent person, can do those things. Hello, sunshine. I am so happy to be back in the recording studio, aka my office. And today we're going to talk about jealousy and the fact that jealousy is a clue to things that you think that you need permission to do. So let me explain. Have you ever looked at someone online or just out on the street, right? And they're doing something that you think is very audacious. Maybe it's a fat person wearing shorts, right? Maybe it is someone on Instagram who posts selfies every day and she has really bushy eyebrows or a big nose or any number of things, right? And that's something that you have always internalized that you can't do. And so two things can happen. One, you might feel jealous. You might be like, oh, I wish I could do that. I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous of the fact that, like, look at her just rocking her bushy brows. I wish I could do that. I'm jealous that she can do that and I can't, right? I have to pluck and tweeze my eyebrows. Or we can get really nasty about it and be like, well, she obviously doesn't know that you're supposed to have eyebrows like this. And that is a really, really basic example of something that happens creatively quite a lot. Maybe you read something. I just did this with TJ Klune's The Extraordinaries series. I read the first book and I was like, he already wrote a better novel than my novel, so why should I even keep going? I was like, the ADHD representation, the queer representation, the seedy evil corporation. I'm like, this is everything that I wanted. It's already been done. I'm so jealous. Like, he got there first, kind of a thing. And that's hilarious because we need more neurodivergent queer protagonists in our stories, right? That's what I'm all about. I'm all about getting more autistic representation on the shelves and more body diversity on the shelves, right? Like, I want a fat protagonist who's super hot and like can date whoever they want. And then it's like, haha, psych, they're asexual. Get out of here. You know, I don't have to be jealous of TJ Klune in order to still rock the hell out of my novel. But oftentimes that jealousy, if we're not being super nasty about it, right? If we're not like, well, you clearly just don't know how to write books. This is a bad book. No, it's not. It's an amazing book and I love it. So that's sort of the, like, I don't want to say it's more enlightened to be jealous in like a permission wanting way. Because sometimes we're just going to talk shit about people. That's like when your first impulse is like, I would never wear shorts out in public if I had that body. You then get the benefit of having a second thought come up that's like, I didn't raise you like that. That's not how we talk about people. Then you can do a little reflection and be like, oh, that's coming from a place of me feeling shame about my body and projecting it onto that person. So when you're jealous, when you feel a little shit talky, when somebody is activating something in you that makes you feel like you want to be a snarky bitch about it, it is very likely that they're doing something you wish you could do. So I'm going to refer to that as jealousy for this episode. So jealousy can be a clue to a permission that you can give yourself. If you see a model with a big nose and you're like, I'm so jealous. I'm not beautiful enough for my big nose to be model worthy. Like, yes, huh? That jealousy is giving you something that you wish you had permission to do or be, space that you had permission to take up, etc. So look to the jealous moments as a clue. I don't often get jealous much, but then like when I think about it, sometimes I do. I'm like, I'm jealous of people who don't have to work all day, right? Like I wish I could just work like 4 hours a day. And then I'm thinking, am I really jealous of that? Because that's probably like CEO type guys who just make a bunch of money off the exploitation of workers. I don't necessarily know if that's the life that I want. No, I checked. I'm sure that's not the life that I want. So it goes a layer deeper, I think, with neurodivergence, because if we are jealous of ease, like I'm jealous that somebody else has a much easier time making time for creativity, making time to write, taking art classes and showing up consistently for them. I'm jealous of people who can do that. That might not necessarily be a permission problem. That you might totally believe that you deserve to be creative and to take the art class and to make the paintings and to take up the time that you need. But what we're jealous of is the ease with which a neurotypical person, or even a more supported and accommodated neurodivergent person, can do those things. So a neurotypical person could be like, yeah, I go to the coffee shop every Saturday morning. I work on my novel, and then I go to the YMCA and I swim for an hour. And then I do this and this and this. And it's like, how do you even keep track of all that? Like, do you have a planner? Do you have an assistant? Do you have a driver? Do you have a cook? What's going on here? And it's like, no, their brain just holds on to all of the tasks in the right order. I'm kind of jealous of that. Sometimes I wish my brain could do that. At the same time, I'm also grateful for the things that my neurodivergence offers me. Like, I love the way that my ADHD has led me down so many different hobbies and interests, like we talked about in the last episode. Like, sometimes you can just let a hobby go and lie dormant and then pick it back up when you're ready and when that's shiny and fun again. I work with my writers on shiny objects and like kind of focusing on one or two things at a time. And that is a skill that we have to learn as neurodivergent people, especially people with ADHD. So our natural inclination is to just follow the dopamine. It's like, oh, I'm writing a novel. That's great. Oh, I just had a great idea for an essay that would make a great piece of my memoir that I eventually write one day in the future. So now I'm going to go work on that memoir. And then it's like, oh, but I have been writing this poetry collection for like 4 or 5 years, and I really want to self-publish that. So I'm going to go look up how to self-publish my poetry. All of these things are related to your passion for writing, but the neurotypical person might have a much easier time prioritizing or even getting multiple things done within the same timeline. Like, it's very possible that the neurotypical person can work on the novel and the memoir and the poetry collection all in the same week. And to a neurodivergent person, we would see that as a weakness or a problem or an inability to complete the task at hand. But to a neurotypical person, like, that's all part of the timeline because they can zoom out and see, okay, if I work on the poetry collection for 2 hours a week, that'll be done in a month. Great. So I'm just going to make sure that that's on my calendar. As opposed to me with ADHD, where I'm just like right up against my deadline. And that is when I can start working on a thing. This is very frustrating for me. I have tried to make it better. And yet my brain, even when I put the time on my calendar, is like, no, that's not due yet. You don't want that. And I'm like, brain, we talked about this. It's on the calendar, so we do it. To a neurotypical person, that's just time management. To a neurodivergent person with ADHD, that's like, you're giving me information I don't need yet because that deadline's not for 2 weeks. And so that ability to zoom out and see like how each individual hour or chunk of time or week fits into all the things that I want to write or paint or create or do in a given month, quarter, year. That sounds decadent. I would love to be able to plan everything out like that. I have tried. I'll make a 10-year plan and then 3 years in realize that I made a 10-year plan. And then I go look at it and I'm like, I didn't do any of this. So did I waste my time making the plan? I think not. I think the making of the plan felt really good at the time. So I try not to be mad at that. But this jealousy thing that comes in. So on the one hand, if you're like, oh, I wish I could rock bright red glasses and pierce my face, you have full permission to do that. Please do it. If you work at a bank, they might yell at you. Quit your job, maybe. Or, do what you need to do. Oh, I just realized my Oracle cards got like oil on them or something. That's why I don't eat at my desk. Oracle cards, they're great. And honestly, this Oracle card is relevant today. So this says JOMO, celebrate the joy of missing out. Feel content with staying in and disconnecting as a form of self-love. Nothing that's meant for you will miss you. And I think that could apply to jealousy as well. So I've talked about jealousy as like you wish that you had permission to rock it the way that they are rocking it. Jealousy as the sort of, I wish my brain could do that, but it can't. And then on that level, you need an accommodation. And being able to put a name to what you're actually jealous of or actually seeking can be very helpful. Because if you think it's, I wish I could write my novel, but it's actually, I wish I could consistently show up at my scheduled writing times, even when my brain doesn't want to focus, those are two different problems. And they're very related. And I help people with both. So hi, I'm a writing coach. But then there's also the jealousy of spaciousness, right? Or there's jealousy that's like, I wish I didn't have so much to do. I really envy people who don't have to do that much stuff. Like I envy Beyonce. Beyonce's got like a whole staff of people who cater to her needs. Yeah, that sounds awesome. Like I'm a little jealous of some people in my life who fly first class every time they fly. And I'm like, oh, that sure would be nice. And it doesn't necessarily mean that I need permission to do that because I know that that's available to me and that if I wanted to prioritize that, I'm allowed to. I could purchase a first class ticket. I don't necessarily have the financial means to make that happen frequently, but it's within my grasp. So that's not a permission thing. That's sort of a just aspirational jealousy, maybe. And not even jealousy, just kind of, that's nice for you that you can do that right now. It's not a priority right now. And then feeling the discomfort of that, because it can be a little uncomfortable to see people who get to do things you wish you could do. And you know that they could be possible, but you don't have the time budget or the financial budget or like the energy budget to do them. Like I also think it would be really cool to go hike around in like the Southwest. I'm disabled. I can't go hike around in the Southwest. So I might be a little jealous of people who can, but not in a way that I'm like, I can do it too. In a way that I would need an accommodation. So in the way that our neurodivergences are disability, which I think I'm going to do another episode on that, of thinking of neurodivergence as a disability and what that means. But as with any disability and with neurodivergence, you can accommodate it. So maybe that would mean like a virtual tour or getting like really into art and painting scenes from those locations because art is something that's accessible to me. I can make a painting or a collage or follow photographers or something. Like I could get that natural beauty into my eye holes, which is what I'm jealous of. And it wouldn't be to the same scale, but it would be enough. So that's your challenge. Look for some jealousy in your life. Think like, who am I jealous of? Why am I jealous of them? So for me, it's like, okay, I'm jealous of my friend because she flies first class and I think that looks so luxurious and nice and I hate flying and being all cramped up and it sucks. That's why I'm jealous. And then What is a step you can take to either access that thing that you're jealous of or like help regulate yourself in the fact that you don't have that thing? So for me, that could be like, look, I choose, like I can look up some flights on kayak.com or whatever flight tool you want to use and look at the price of first class tickets and be like, not today. Not today. I have other priorities for my money, such as paying my quarterly taxes and medical bills. Like some days it's just not a first class day, and that's okay. Or I could say something like, I'm really jealous of my sister. This one's going to sound weird. I'm jealous of my sister for getting married for the first time in their 30s and having a long engagement and going to couples counseling and living with their partner first and like all the things that I did wrong because I was like, I need a husband so that I feel happy, right? So I went and fucked up and they learned from that, which is a net positive. But I am jealous of the fact that they didn't have some crash and burn stupid first marriage. What can I do as an action step to achieve that? There's not one, but that's a topic for me to reflect on. I can journal about that. Maybe we could talk about it and I could get some more clarity on the fact that my choices and my mistakes helped them in some way so that I could feel just a little bit better and not like I'm over here making terrible choices and they're over here and they make better choices, right? Because that's a sense of jealousy of being like, oh, they're so much smarter than me at life. Not necessarily. They probably would have done the same shit if I hadn't been there spectacularly blowing up my life so that they didn't follow in my footsteps, right? But you could, this one comes up with my writers a lot, is when you are working on a draft, a rough draft sketch, a rough draft of a book, an essay, like anything that is your first foray into a creative outlet, if you are comparing that to other people's finished work, that's going to cause this kind of jealousy spark thing. Like, oh, why isn't mine as good as that? Why they've only been doing art for 2 years and I've been doing art for 5 years. Why am I not as good as them? I'm jealous. That's a reflection point. That's a moment when you can say, okay, 2 years compared to 5 years. Well, how often do I practice and how often do they practice? And did they have better art classes in school than I had? Like, did they graduate high school at a beginner level like I did, or were they able to take a lot of art classes in school that put them higher than I was at that same age? Like, or whatever. You could also just say like, their art is different than my art, and also their final draft is different than my first draft, and even their first draft. That's something that I would love to normalize, is I want to see more first drafts. And I love those posts that artists will do where they're like, I redid a sketch from my sketchbook 5 years ago. And so you get to see like the 5 years ago sketch, which is honestly pretty good. And then compared to their skill level today, and it's like mind blowing. Or people who will do these reels and TikToks and they do half of the picture in like 1 hour. And then the other half of the picture, they take 5 or 10 hours to paint it or to color it or draw it or whatever. And the difference is so staggering. And I love those, because I used to be a really fast painter. I was like, yeah, I can knock out a painting in like an hour. And now I have paintings that I spend a few hours on one day at a time. So by the end of the painting, I've put maybe 5, 8, 10 hours into it, and they're better. It took me a long time to figure out that the difference between like the quality I was seeing has a time factor. So if you find yourself jealous of somebody's creative skill or their ability to do anything, ask them how they did it, right? And be like, hey, I really love your art. When I try and make art, it never looks like that. And I wish that it did, and it does in my mind's eye. Help. Like, what advice would you have to an artist who's beginning? And then they can tell you something like, dude, you have to practice like so much. Here's some of my old art. If you are an artist and you hear this right now, please post some of your old art on Instagram because we need to see it. And tag me, Caitlin Liz Fisher. I'm going to leave you there with this. I know it didn't have like a beautiful bow on the package of this topic, but essentially what it boils down to is jealousy is a clue that is talking to you about some type of fear that you have, either fear that you can't achieve something that somebody else has, a fear that you don't deserve what somebody else has or deserves, or a fear that it comes from scarcity, it comes from lack, it comes from, I can't have that, I don't have that, I don't deserve that. Examine that. Journal about it. Talk to me about it. I freaking love talking about jealousy and unpacking it and getting to what it means. That's my bread and butter. It's so tasty. Dig in. If you're jealous, be like, I'm going to get curious about this jealousy. Don't go all mean girls about it. Just get curious. Become an investigator. What does this jealousy activate in me? Does this jealousy make me feel like a child? Okay, examine that. Like, if your parents pit you against each other as children, like you and your siblings, there's a lot more to do with that jealousy than just being like, I wish I had what they had. So this is a multi-layered issue. And I absolutely believe that you deserve beautiful, wonderful things, including time and space to be creative on your own terms without hustling, without perfectionism, without self-sabotage. And so you are cordially invited to grab your copy of my free masterclass, Art is Revolution, Reclaiming Your Passion Under Capitalism. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. It's like an hour long, and I guarantee you will come away with at least one thing that makes you go, whoa, I never thought about it like that. And honestly, the more weird art we're making out in the world, the better the world is. I believe that. So go forth, make weird art, follow your jealousy, maybe make art about your jealousy. If you make art about your jealousy, also tag me. Okay, gonna leave it there. I love you. Drink water and stay hydrated. You capable but dehydrated bitch. And I will see you later.